Bright QT. Every student matters.
Hello students. Now let's talk about the aims and objectives of the Muslim League here. Now before this students, we have been talking about the Muslim League, right? Now if I ask you, when was the Muslim League formed? All India Muslim League, when was it formed? So yes, you can answer that it was formed on 30th December 1906. Now if I ask you who were the leaders, who were the founders, you can name Aga Khan, Nawab Salimullah of Dhaka, and another name that has not been mentioned there was Nawab Moshinul Mulk. Okay. Now here students, since we know that it was only after the policy of divide and rule that was adopted by the British government that they motivated the Muslims, the upper class Muslims, to form a separate organization like that of the Indian National Congress. Right? We have learned all these points here. Now let us try to understand why was this Muslim League formed at first place. In very simple sentence, you can say that the Muslim League was formed to safeguard the interests of whom? Hindus or Muslims? Definitely Muslims. So it would be the Indian Muslims, right? To safeguard the interests of Indian Muslims. But somewhere we also learned that the British government, they tried to force them or they tried to manipulate with their minds, right? So here we see that initially Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he was against the whole idea of reservation of seats. For whom? For Muslims. Because somewhere he believed in this Hindu-Muslim unity. So initially they were believing in this whole idea of Hindu-Muslim unity, but later on with the changing circumstances, we see that the whole league was formed to safeguard the interests of Muslims in India. Now let us have a look at the important aims and objectives of the Muslim League here. So the first point here is to promote the feelings of loyalty to the British government and remove any misconception that may arise due to the intentions of the government. Now remember students, it was the idea of the British government that was now being initiated here in this league, right? So they went to Lord Minto, they had a deliberation discussion there, and it was finally within 3 months that they decided to form this whole league, right? So therefore the main idea was to keep the British government happy, to be loyal towards them, and also try to avoid any kind of misconception that could arise with the decisions made by the government. And also they tried to keep the relationship here quite simple. They did not want to upset the British government, right? They are not going to challenge the British government here as well. So initially we see that when the league was formed in the year 1906, the main objective here was to maintain good relationship with the British government. Okay. The second aim here is to protect and advance the political rights of the Muslims in India and represent their needs. Now this is one of the basic needs, correct? Because the whole league was formed to fight for the rights of the Indian Muslims. Somewhere they believe that they are in minority, right? And therefore they could be dominated by the Hindu community. These were the ideas that were being manifested in the minds of Indian Muslims. By whom? By the British government. So therefore the second aim here was to protect and advance the political rights of Muslims in India and definitely try to represent the needs of Muslims and the demands that could be fulfilled. The third aim here is to prevent the rise or the prejudice. Let me complete this part here. Prejudice for other communities. So the missing point here would be to prevent the rise of prejudice, right? Any certain ideas holding against any other community among the Muslims of India. Okay, so they definitely wanted to prevent these ideas, these prejudices that were being raised in our country for any other communities. Okay, now again the idea was to keep the Muslims away from joining the INC. INC here it stands for Indian National Congress. So definitely students, since it was a Hindu organization, right, and therefore they did not want any Muslim to join that organization. But there were many Muslim leaders who were the part of the Indian National Congress. So there were certain people who believed in the Muslim League here, but there were certain people who were not very much in favor of all the objectives and aims of the Muslim League. They somewhere believed in the Hindu-Muslim unity. Okay? And activities that were directed were against the Congress and Hindus. Now these were some of the basic aims. Now you have to remember this. Promote feelings of loyalty for the British government, protect and advance the needs or the political rights of Muslims, right? And to prevent the rise of any prejudice against for any other community among the Muslims of India. Okay. Now finally in 1912 we see that another important Muslim leader whose name was Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, he founded Al-Hilal. Okay. And Maulana Muhammad Ali, he started the newspapers, the weekly here, Comrade in English and Hamdard in Urdu. Talking about, basically this was anti-league, right? And they were talking about the nationalist feelings among the people. These were the ideas that were put in these weeklies, these magazines that were being introduced. Now what happened after 1912? Now let me clear this part for you. After 1912, in 1913, we see a major change. Now initially we are seeing that they are trying to promote the feelings of loyalty to the British government. But in the year 1913, a major decision took place in the Muslim League. Now what was that major decision? The decision was for self-government. Yes students. Now in Muslim League as well, all the leaders, they took on this major decision for self-government. And therefore, now the relationship between the Muslim League and the British government, it started straining here, right? It started changing, right? The equation between the British government and the Muslim League, it started changing somewhat, okay? Also, somewhere we also see that the Hindu-Muslim unity that some Muslim leaders they were believing in, it also started changing. Now, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he joined this party, this Muslim League in the year 1913, right? And it was in the year 1940 that a new demand for a new Pakistan was made, a separate Muslim state, about which we are going to learn later on. So here this is all about the formation, the aims and the objectives of the Muslim League. Since we have been talking about Muhammad Ali Jinnah, so let's have a look at the fact file related to Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Now here students, I have mentioned some important points that have been given in your book as well. So he was born on December 25, 1876 at Karachi, that is in present day Pakistan. In 1895, he was called to the bar in London at the age of 19. Now, he started practicing in Bombay as a lawyer in 1896. In 1906, he joined politics and participated in the Calcutta session of Indian National Congress, where he was very much against the reservation of seats for Muslims. Right? He believed in Hindu-Muslim unity. Now, in 1913, nevertheless, he joined the Muslim League. 1937, he started supporting the idea of a separate Muslim state. In 1940, the proposition was put forward by him for a new Pakistan, Muslim state, separate Muslim state. Finally, in 1947, we see that India was partitioned, we all know, into India and Pakistan. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he became the Governor General of the country there, founder of Pakistan, and he was also known as Quaid-e-Azam, which means a great leader. Okay, and he died in the year 1948. Now, these are some of the important points that you have to remember here. Now, coming to the question, we have a question that says, what were the main aims of the Muslim League? Now, how are you going to answer this question? Here, we have to talk about the main aims, and you know that there were 3 to 4 main aims of the Muslim League. Now, the first one was to be loyal. Now, I'm giving just the keywords. We have learned about it right now. So, you are going to mention all these points here. To be loyal to the British government and to avoid any misconception, right, related to the decisions made by the government. So, this is the first point. Second point is to represent the needs of the British government, of the Indian Muslims. This was one of the main aims here. Third here, the third aim was again to avoid, not to avoid, but to stop the Muslims from joining INC, right? And also, fourth here, the main one of the aims here was to prevent the rise of any prejudice for another community. Okay, space is less, so you have to answer the question like this. Now, these are some of the main aims of the Muslim League, and that is how you have to compile this whole answer. Okay, students, so this was all about the Muslim League. Now we are going to talk about the Gandhian era. Okay, thank you very much.